Alright guys, Murph and Leia are here, and today we're going to discuss a comparison between lever action rifles and pump action shotguns out on the range. Now, what spurred this conversation to begin with? I have previously done a video comparing semi-automatic rifles to shotguns, a range comparison, generating times and all that kind of stuff, and then I've also done a video on the viability or effectiveness of tactical lever action rifles. Both of those videos are linked in the description. And that kind of spurred some thought. That video and some of my conclusions and some of the areas that I pressed on kind of encouraged me to go ahead and do a range portion of this so that I could turn some of what I was talking to, generate some data for some of what it is that I was talking about in order to have something a little bit more concrete instead of just speaking in kind of vague realms. So with that, we need to go ahead and embrace a couple of caveats. First off, this is not a scientific comparison by any means, and this is not meant to be a scientific comparison by any means. This is meant to be something that you can view, you can get some entertainment out of, as well as use it to kind of develop your own opinions or add data to your opinions so that you can feel one way or the other. Now, in addition to that, I have absolutely no formal training with a shotgun. I've never taken a shotgun course. I do not run shotguns professionally. So that's okay because I also do not have any training, any formal training with a lever action rifle. So in that case, they are also very much so comparable. In addition to that, I do not own a tactical lever action rifle, but I also have some non-tactical, or at least out of the box, basic pump action shotguns as well. So that is at least a relatively apples to apples comparison. Now, one of the key things that I want to get across here, there are states where lever action rifles are viable options for defense because tactical semi-automatic rifles are not available. You can't have an AR, you can't have an AK. What becomes really important, however, because I see that there are people that don't live in those types of states that are making their Space Cowboy lever action rifles, what I think we start to tread upon is the possibility of somebody recommending suboptimal options to people for very dangerous situations. So somebody sitting there going, well, you know, my 357 lever action rifle, is just as good in close range encounters and stuff like that as an AR-15. And that's something that we need to explore a little bit closer, especially when we consider that lever action rifles have a very in-depth and very individual manual of arms. It's not necessarily streamlined, which is why I feel like comparing them to shotguns is really important, because those same people in those locations where they can't necessarily have tactical semi-automatic rifles also would be potentially viewing pump action shotguns or any type of shotgun as a defensive option as well. So what direction should they go? Now, there's very tangible benefits to going to the lever action rifle. You get a rifle cartridge, which means that you'll have greater range, as opposed to a slug where you're looking at 150 yards tops, and that's like, you're really actually looking at having like a dedicated slug gun at that point, as opposed to running an improved cylinder bore without rifling. So that's something to keep in mind. And though the shotgun is very adaptable in that you can run bird shot, buckshot, slugs, less than lethal loads, all that kind of stuff, there's some that range limitation is something that somebody might be viewing as a problem. However, a shotgun, my argument going into this, has a slightly simpler manual of arms. So we're going to go ahead and test that out on the range and see if a lever action rifle can hang with a pump action shotgun in dynamic environments. It's one of the big things that we're looking at here. All right, guys, now if you've ever seen my range comparison videos before, you know that I pick out a couple of different drills, and I don't necessarily do the same drills over and over again. And that is because, one, this is purely for entertainment value. I'm not trying to create like some sort of comprehensive body of comparison that, you know, we can rate against everything else. It's not what I'm trying to do here. And then two, this is my opportunity to train. Pretty much everything I do out on the range now is generating content for either the channel or the Facebook page. If you guys are interested in that, the Murph's Law official Facebook page is linked in the description. This is all, like, I don't have time to do just channel stuff and then also do just range stuff, especially since I also work for a living, and work is going to be pretty hectic in the next month. It's going to cut into my time to be able to generate content as well as train. So I change up the drills quite frequently whenever it is that I do these types of comparison videos. Now, let's go ahead and introduce the players here before we get drawn into the range portion and the different drills and all that kind of stuff, because I forgot to do that and now I'm having to refilm. So, first off, we have this Marlin Model 30 AW chambered and 30-30 Winchester. Previously reviewed on the channel, link in the description. And it is going up against my Mossberg 500 chambered in 12 gauge. All right, what are the drills? So I'm just gonna go ahead and give like a quick wave toss on what the drills are, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty comparison type portion. A lot of our discussion is going to be based off of what it is that I uncover in these drills as I put this gun on the timer. So the first drill is the 50-yard drill. Why 50 yards? Well, because I wanted to shoot at steel. And guys, I will not engage steel with a rifle or shotgun slug inside of 50 yards. And now some of you out there are very comfortable shooting at rifle steel at like 10 yards, and I can't stand being next to you because it's just throwing spall all over the place. I've had friends get pretty seriously injured by shooting rifles inside of 50 yards. So I will not engage steel target inside of 50 yards with either a slug or a rifle bullet. This is also going to make it kind of complicated moving forward into the drills, because on the really close range stuff, I'm going to be shooting the rifle at a paper target. However, if I shoot my shotgun at the paper target, it's going to destroy my target backer and all that kind of stuff. So the shotgun will be shot on steel and the rifle will be shot on paper until we get to the longer distances, in which both will be shot on steel. All right, so there's enough about that. The 50-yard drill. So this will be engaging a C-zone steel target at 50 yards, with the emphasis being accuracy, not so much speed. From there, we will go into a barrier drill in which I will shoot both options off of both shoulders. And then we will finish up with the 1 to 3 threat drill, which is kind of like my near to far drill, except in my near to far drill, I remain stationary and I engage targets at different distances. The targets remain stationary. Well, I guess the targets remain stationary in both instances. I move from distance to distance to engage different targets. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, so with that, why don't we go ahead and get into the 50-yard drill. So the 50-yard drill, the goal here is to engage with 3 shots on the C-zone size steel at 50 yards accurately. So speed is not the goal here. We're still putting on the timer, but speed is not the goal. It's all about sight alignment and how long it takes me to get that proper sight alignment in order to be able to engage the steel. So let's go ahead and check out that footage now. All right, guys, so the Marlin completed the 50-yard drill in 6.38 with 1 miss. I just got a little sloppy on the sights, a little fast on the trigger there. The Mossberg, on the other hand, did it in 5.33 with absolutely no hits, because I'm utilizing, as we can see, a bead sight. Now, both of these guns are drilled and tapped in order to be able to mount optics. However, I have not yet mounted optics on either of them, which is appropriate because this is out-of-the-box testing in this case. So that's just fine. This is doing exactly what it is it's supposed to do. It is difficult to engage with a bead sight out to distance, and we pretty adequately demonstrated that here today. Whereas the Marlin still had a miss, but otherwise, I mean, I was pretty much on the target. So I have no real complaints with that. You know, that was shooter error that pushed that one shot off of the target. Now, the Mossberg still conducted the firing very rapidly. The only thing that really hurts it here is more of the misses in this case. It's over a second faster when it comes to cycling and, I guess you could say, sight alignment, but obviously sight alignment was not going that well. So that is why I would say that the Marlin pretty effectively wins this particular round. That's not a shock, it's a rifle. It has a front and rear sight and all that kind of stuff. Now, if I changed this slightly and I had an out-of-the-box tactical shotgun that had iron sights on it, we could reasonably expect that I would have 3 hits on the target at that point, or at least have a better opportunity to be able to have hits on that target at that point. However, the vast majority of people have shotguns that look like this. They don't necessarily have Benelli M4s or Remington 870s that have been gone over by like some sort of custom manufacturer in order to be able to have those types of sights, or any type of off-the-shelf rifle-sighted pump-action shotgun. Most people have a bead sight on their home defense shotgun. So in this case, we very adequately demonstrated that most people really aren't that ready to be able to fight with their pump-action shotgun like they think they are. All right, so from there, why don't we go ahead and get into the barrier drill. Now here, I would wind up working around this barrier. I'd start on the right side of the barrier, shooting with my right side from the kneeling position, and then transition over to the left side, swapping shoulders and engaging the target off of the left side of the barrier. All right, so let's see how that went. Now, an interesting thing occurred actually the first time I attempted this drill with the Marlin, and that was I actually had a click no bang. So I completed the drill, and then I came back afterwards and refilmed the drill, which is what I used for the actual comparison footage here. So with the malfunction, that was a 1048. Without the second time around, without the malfunction, I shot that drill in 804. With the Mossberg, I shot it in 7.37, and just as accurately as I did with the Marlin. So this one is a little bit closer in difference. However, the Mossberg still did it faster, and in this case, at close range, somewhere where a shotgun thrives to begin with, it did it just as fast. It did it faster, and it did it just as accurately. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. Was it difficult to operate either one of these weapon systems off of my left side? Well, it's definitely the first time that I've ever shot a lever-action a lever-action rifle off of my left shoulder. So that was a little bit of a surprise. However, I didn't have an issue picking up the sights. I didn't have an issue cycling the action or anything along those lines. It was just different. It felt really weird. So, and as far as the pump-action shotgun is concerned, it did exactly what pump-action shotguns always do. I had no issues operating it in that position off of that shoulder, off of my left shoulder. So in this case, I would say the Mossberg, the shotgun, won this particular round. All right, guys, let's go to the 1 to 3 threat drill. So this started off, by the way, the barrier shooting was done at 10 yards. So this started off with our close threat at 10 yards, 2 rounds. Moving back to 18 yards with 2 rounds. Why did I pick 18 yards in this case? I picked 18 yards because with the light target loads that I was shooting out of the Mossberg shotgun and the improved cylinder bore, I hoped, or I expected, that the shotgun could still produce a pattern at 18 yards that would be able to move the steel. And one consistent thing for all the shotgun reviews and testing and stuff like that I've done on these steel targets is that I need the steel to move in order to be able to grade the engagement as a success, in order to be able to grade that as a hit. So I figured 18 yards would still give me more distance than 10 yards, but still be close enough in order to be able to produce an impact, a gradable impact. And then from there we go back to 50 yards, conduct a reload, and engage the steel with slugs out of the shotgun, and then, of course, standard 30-30 Winchester ammunition out of the Marlin. All right, so let's go ahead and check that out and see how that went. All right, guys, the Marlin did it in 27.55 with all hits, whereas the Mossberg did it in 24.41 with all misses at the long range, at the 50-yard target yet again. So it's like just under 3 seconds faster to conduct this engagement with the Mossberg. However, the lever action rifle produced more effective hits out to distance. I was still just as accurate on the close range shots, or at least accurate enough on the close range shots, and then I was able to engage with the long range shooting as well. So this is a little bit of a sticky conundrum here. We already knew that the Mossberg the pump action shotgun was being outclassed by the Marlin at distance, by the lever action rifle at distance. If we look at just the close range performance and the fact that the Mossberg was moving faster overall as we went through the engagement, I think we start to assess that perhaps the Mossberg, again at close range, the pump action shotgun is still doing better than the lever action rifle. However, is it enough? And I think this is where we really demonstrate some of the shortcomings of the shotgun. Like, yes, as we move out to distance, the shotgun is not necessarily the most viable option. Whereas the lever action rifle is working at close range, though slower, and it's working at long range. But what I decided, maybe what we needed to look at more closely, and I had enough ammunition left over to be able to do this, was to look at reloads. Because if we take the idea that the guns are performing accurately at closer range, well, what about more administrative type tasks? What about things that have to be done in order to be able to keep the gun in the fight? A pump action shotgun, a shotgun in general with a tubular feed magazine, is very difficult to keep gassed up in the fight. That's like the main thing you have to train when it comes to shotguns, since they are rounds limited and it's more of an intensive manual of arms to be able to reload them. You have to train that type of stuff more often. A lever action rifle, also being a tubular fed magazine and manually cycled in this case, is going to be equally difficult to keep gassed up. However, it is much easier to access the magazine tube on a pump action shotgun, the tubular fed shotgun, than it is on a lever action rifle, where we have this gated mechanism that we have to get through in order to be able to load rounds into the tubular magazine. So I decided to isolate just the reloads portion. I went back down to 10 yards, and then I conducted a real quick reload drill. All right, the shotgun did it in 9.64, which I think is partially my fault in this case. I could have set that up better for more streamlined reloading. I didn't get a chance to refilm because I was out of shotgun ammunition at that point. Whereas the Marlin did it in 6.59. Now, I reloaded the Marlin in that case. I reloaded the lever action rifle in the same way that I did the pump action shotgun, which I started off the drill, of course, with the actions open, and then I grabbed the rounds out of the shell carrier, dropped one into the chamber, closed it, inserted a round into the magazine tube, and then conducted the engagement. I did the same thing with both guns. I had a theory, and it's actually something that I mentioned in the tactical lever action rifle video as well, that it may be faster to just reload the chamber on the lever action rifle. So plop a round in there, close it, conduct my engagement, open it, insert the next round, close it, conduct my engagement. And the theory that I have behind that would be that I would just continue doing that so that I could get to a point where I could actually fully gas up the rifle and then be able to, go through my engagement and all that kind of stuff. So I decided to give the loading the chamber method a go as well. And what we see here is I did that in 6.74. So 6.59, reloading it in the same manner as I did the shotgun, the chamber, and then putting one into the magazine tube. and then a slight increase in time, about 0.15, to the 674 that I got just loading the chamber. So I guess in this case, it is still faster to load around in the chamber and then load around into the magazine tube. It makes sense if you think about it for more than half a second, because now I have to stop what it is that I'm doing, get that round out of there, feed it in, close it, and then get back on my sights, go through all the process of engaging with that added reload. So it makes sense why that would take slightly longer, but it didn't take that much longer. So it's not inviable, it's just not the best option overall. Now, of course, both of these guns have these really crappy shell carriers on them. It's a real pain. When I did the 1 to 3 threat drill, I had a round fall out of this shell carrier, and that's because the first one in this loop is kind of large, and it did not manage to hang on to the rim of the 3030 cartridge casing. When I moved it back to these other smaller ones, I had less of an issue. So don't use these. These are terrible. That little embedded mini review. These are terrible. They're absolutely horrific. I had a lot of issue fishing the rounds for the reload out of this shotgun setup. And I think it's because these are much longer loops and the shotgun shells are relatively shorter. I'm shooting 2 3/4 inch shells. And they kind of disappear in here, so they're more difficult to get a hold of. Whereas rifle rounds inserted into these, I have a rim to grab onto. I also have like the tip of the bullet that I can press on. They extend further out of the actual carrier, which allows me to be able to better get a hold of them so that I can reload and all that kind of stuff. These are not built for speed reloading. These are built for like hunting in the woods, you know, only taking 1 or 2 shots, not necessarily trying to do some tactical stuff off of those. So I do not recommend them for that purpose. All right, guys, so there's the data. What are my conclusions based off of what it is that I saw here today? Well, I have to say that I do have to rethink my disposition on lever action rifles. Still only in places, tactical lever action rifles, still only in places where tactical semi-automatic rifles are not available. If you have access to an AR and you're choosing to run a tactical lever action rifle, you're just doing it for the Instagram clout. Stop. Just stop it. Now, these two guns, bone stock, I would say the lever action rifle performed a little bit better. However, it would not take that much to make the pump action shotgun more viable. If I add an optic to this setup, it would be a lot easier, or even just iron sights, it would be a lot easier for me to be able to conduct those long range engagements, which are the main thing that's holding this gun back. If you look at just manual of arms and manipulation and close range engagements and all that kind of stuff, it's hanging pretty tight with the lever action rifle. Now, of course, I can add an optic to this lever action rifle, Murph, but that's not what's holding this gun back right now. Like, yes, I would be able to, if I put a red dot on here, I would be able to get a little bit faster onto the sight and all that kind of stuff, and I would be able to stack hits better and all. And yes, absolutely, a red dot or an optic on this gun would still help. But the reloads, there's not a whole lot I can do to improve on the reloads. Especially because if I train enough with a shotgun, and if I have one that's actually amenable to the practice, I can double and quad load this gun. Competition shooters do it all the time. I'm just not that good. I haven't gotten down how to do it. I don't have the equipment that presents the shells in such a manner that I can do that type of action. You're not going to be able to do that with a lever action rifle. I've tried, I've experimented with it a little bit. It doesn't really work out that well. It's very difficult to hit the angles right in order to be able to engage with the loading gate as well as get it into the magazine tube and get both of them to do it. So you wind up single loading. You're stuck at single loading. So yeah, when you're an amateur like I am, and all you really know how to do is, efficiently is to single load the guns, the two guns run fairly close to one another. But quad loading and an optic on this shotgun, I think we could reasonably assess would put it well ahead, would edge out the lever action rifle at that point. The only advantage the lever action rifle maintains is engagement distance. But even that is restricted by the cartridge. Lever action rifle cartridges are not long range cartridges. The 30-30 Winchester tops out at 200. Everything else beyond that is getting around like maybe 300 at best. Whereas if you have something like a tactical semi-automatic rifle, like a 5.56 or a 7.62 by 3.9, you can engage out to 500. You can engage beyond 500 depending on how the gun's configured. That's not going to be a consistent event for this type of gun. So, what is your conclusion in this case, Murph? If you're looking at just doing close range stuff and you're in a place that doesn't allow you to have a semi-automatic rifle, a shotgun's where it's at. If your concern is that you might need to engage at a little bit longer distance, that you're looking at something as a life and liberty gun, something that you can be that militia, you can be that concerned citizen looking to defend your community, a lever action rifle, a tactical lever action rifle staying within the confines of state law will be helpful to you. It won't be the greatest thing in the world. I would not want to go muzzle to muzzle with somebody who has a modern tactical rifle with a lever action tactical rifle, but it's better than rocks. And really, find a way to be able to, move out of that state. Get to a place that actually allows you to be able to have stuff that you should be able to have in order to be able to defend yourself. All right, guys, I think that pretty much covers my thoughts on this particular subject. I hope you guys found this interesting, and that's pretty much what I got. Have a good day. Oh. Lean right. Lean left.